that looked interesting. This one got a lot of attention. They took some brain cells in a petri dish and they taught it to play Pong. It wasn't clear to me how they give it any feedback so it knows when it's getting it right, but it plays a version of Pong and seems to do pretty well. There you go. It's just a one-player version of Pong. But you can see it's not just hitting it randomly. They made it pretty easy with that paddle so big, but you'll see in a minute it does quite a good move here. Like when I watched this right now, I felt like it was just being stupid and going out of the way. But you'll see it do what a human would do here.
Is it AI control?
It's brain cells in a petri dish. Just human brain cells, just a few cells. And I don't know how they tell it when it's winning and when it's losing, but there's a spot where it was totally on the wrong side and it zipped down just in time to hit the ball. So it's really playing Pong. So that's interesting. I'm not quite sure what it means. I'm not quite sure how it works, but anyway, I would guess what it shows is that the human brain automatically learns from stimulation, which is, I guess, what it has to do. And here's an article explaining that what's going on with the immigration. We have tons of people coming in illegally. They said we faced this many times before, and the reason it's happening is because we've shut down all the legal visas. And studies have shown in the past many times that if you increase the way, if there's a way to get legal visas, people will do that instead of coming in illegally. So that's something that I've heard all the political pundits say for a long time. The problem is there is no way to get both parties to agree on fixing the problem. Both of them benefit more from leaving it broken, so they can blame the other side for it. But anyway, they've shut down most of the legal immigration methods, so people just come in illegally. I thought this was interesting mostly as an example of a common failure of open source projects. So they push this thing, Mobile Forensic and Network Analysis. You can buy this thing called PyRogue Tool Suite, which is apparently both a hardware device and software, but this description tells me almost nothing. It will do something about mobile network traffic analysis, and even when you click through all the pages, like Getting Started and Help, well, I guess you can go to Discord, but I went to Getting Started, then I went to About, then I went to Blog, then I went to their, and nowhere did they tell you anything about what is it and why would you want it. This is extremely common. People get focused on building something and they just put it on GitHub and they don't explain anything. And then they wonder why nobody uses it. But I couldn't find anywhere they explain why is this different than just putting Wireshark on a Raspberry Pi. Apparently they've done something, but they don't tell you what it is, why you should care or anything. You really need marketing. You really need public relations. And I wanted to point this out. There are various projects that are famous this way. So that's why people say we only need technical people. No, you need like people that can communicate to normal humans. The front page of your site should say what you do and why someone should care, if you want anybody to buy your product or anything. Yes, all right. Anyway, looks like Wired is going to give me some garbage, but this is a very interesting story. Let me see if it'll open in a private window and be any less annoying. All right. Apparently, somebody found a minor genetic change that would make some smaller animal, like a nematode, double its lifetime. And this is a relatively well-known thing. I've heard this from quite a few people. Maybe 20 years ago, it was commonly believed that the reason people get old and die is their body just wears out and there's nothing you can do about it. But that's apparently not true. Our bodies just have switches that cause them to die, which is another theory that's been around. Your bodies deliberately die a little bit after you reproduce just to get you the hell out of the way so the younger generation can take over. And so you could just turn that off. And they found a way to turn it off for some little worm or something. And this woman, Celine Halioua or something, figured out that dogs have the same principle. So she is developing a way to extend the lifetime of dogs. And if it works, not only will there be a large market for that among dog lovers, because she's talking with people who have other things to do like clone dogs, because many, many people want their dogs to live longer, but that's the step towards humans. And so anyway, there's a whole bunch of people doing this, trying to lengthen the lifetime of humans with making some adjustments for the part of your cells that self-destruct. And I've read quite a few articles about it over the years. I think it's more than just the time-honored search for the fountain of youth and just garbage. There seems to be some real science involved. So something good may come out of it, although, it'll probably be a long time before there's really something practical, and only people that are young now can probably expect to benefit from it personally. Anyway, so there's something called AI recruitment software, which not only recruits people and decides who you should hire, it even supposedly analyzes your body language and predicts the emotional intelligence of candidates. And this turns out to be completely fake, as you would imagine. A similar thing, which I imagine is also completely fake, is anti-insider threat software. You can buy products that will analyze the behavior of the people on your network and try to tell you which ones of them have become disloyal and are likely to sell you out by looking at something like how much time they spend playing games or at work or something like that. And in general, I think this is very hard to do. Although, to be fair, if you think about the famous traitors, like the people that sold out the British intelligence agency, the US intelligence agency, a bunch of them had incredibly obvious red flags. Like they started buying an expensive car and stuff that was way beyond the money they could afford and stuff. So it seems like you could find the right evidence somewhere, but apparently, as they're saying, the current generation of software is pretty much just fake, which is what I tended to believe. We'll see. Although I'm seeing a lot of AI stuff work. The stuff for AI to control humans doesn't work so well. And here's another one. It's been all over the place. In the United States and the UK, everybody is trying, the government and the law enforcement people are trying to pass bills. Apple was involved in this. They wanted to force everybody to put a software on either iCloud and on whatever Android uses for a cloud, and on your phone to detect child pornography. And if you had child exploitation images, it would report you to the FBI. And the problem is that would require compromising your privacy. And apparently they actually got pretty far before Apple pulled back and said they were not going to do it, because Apple apparently figured out that this contradicts their marketing position of being pro-privacy.
I thought Apple and Google are doing it.
Apple and Google have talked about doing it. I don't think they're doing it. I think Apple was going to do it, and they pulled back and said they're not going to do it for a while yet. They were going to do it. They were going to scan iCloud. And I think they didn't. I think they stopped at the last minute and decided not to. They thought it would harm their business. But I may have changed their mind again for all I know. Anyway, there's...
Google actually send the child porn thing to the government to...
Yeah, Google...
They are doing this.
Yes, Google, I think, is doing it. Yeah, and that would be the Android side. Yeah, but Apple has had this really strong privacy thing. They wouldn't even let the FBI scan the phone of a dead terrorist. They very much project the privacy of their users. And so I think they figured out that this would contradict that position. They said they left the door open to doing it in the future, but they threw it back in for more study. Anyway, so there are a lot of people argue about this. There are both technical flaws and political flaws. For one thing, this means that your stuff is not really private, and there's some kind of malware-like stuff scanning and sending reports on what you have.
Just another people's machine.
Well, they would put it on your phone. They would install it on your phone as part of the operating system, the scanner that scans the images on your phone and reports them. Or they just put it in the cloud, which would be no software on your machine, and it would only apply if you put your stuff in iCloud, but almost everybody does by default, and whatever the Android equivalent of iCloud is. So there's a lot of argument about it, and this is just more of the crypto wars that have been going on forever. Apple, in particular, is very vigorous about making sure everybody has encrypted private stuff, and the law enforcement agencies always demand that they have a way to get access to all that data. So it goes back and forth. Yeah, just like Kiesco and the Clipper chip, that Globnet points out in the chat. Yes, the same thing. It's been going on for decades. I think it'll never stop. The law enforcement, of course, wants to see everything, and the privacy advocates want to let law enforcement see nothing, and so there's a push back and forth. Anyway, there's another paper out about it talking about how this is not a good idea. And by the way, pointing out the other thing about it, which is that the software to detect images is not very good and prone to false positives. And there have been some famous cases. I saw one in the news about a month ago of a guy in Britain whose child had some kind of medical problem. And the doctor said, okay, take a picture of that of their child and email it to me. So he did that, and then they busted him for child pornography because he sent a naked picture of his child to the doctor, and he almost ended up going to prison for that. And some people do go to prison for that, for completely harmless, innocent things that trigger these filters. So there will be some collateral damage if you deploy this. Of course, you might probably also catch some real pedophiles, and so maybe you have to balance those two. So because of Meta, yeah, someone says automated law enforcement is pretty scary. Yeah, it is. This is like the predictor of future crime. We have that stuff too, that tries to analyze data and decide where a crime is going to happen and send the cops there in advance. And that turned out to be pretty much bogus too. Anyway, a lot of talk about virtual reality thanks to Meta. And apparently, the U.S. military already got into this. In order for training, they already bought some mixed reality goggles from Microsoft and gave them to soldiers, and the things are garbage. They make people nauseated, they make people sick, nobody can stand them, as you'd expect, which is what I think everybody finds, that wearing some kind of weird goggles with projecting a fake world onto you tends to make people sick. Now, if you did, I was just talking about this on a podcast recently, if you did Google Glass had normal glasses where you can see the whole world, and then you just project a little extra stuff on it, like text or something, and I think that would be okay. Augmented reality. But virtual reality, where they block out the world and all you see is the fake world, tends to disorient people and make them sick. Anyway, so the military's attempt to deploy these things has not turned out well. All right. I think that's enough of the news. Let me stop this one.